All right, we're
Cassie,
live. Oh,
we're live. Mm-hmm.
well, if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. My name's Jamie. I'm here with my good friend Roxy, who is the founder and creator of the Inheritance Collective, which is a really cool project. And we decided we wanted to share some of the conversations we've been having behind the scenes and be just a little more inclusive and transparent around the processes of what we're creating together and what dreams we have and what executing on them looks like. So welcome to the conversation if you're here. Roxy, it's so good to be here with you.
Thank you, Jamie. Super excited to be taking this step. As you can tell, probably just from looking at our environments, this is a very grassroots movement. This is the beginning of a big dream. And meanwhile, we've been friends for like 13 years plus. This is the first season, really the second season officially of Inheritance Collective. We launched back in April, and it has been such a beautiful journey thus far. The intention of this movement is to make it easy to be a part of meaningful, measurable change, which so many of us are really craving in our hearts right now. And the state of the world can seem so daunting and overwhelming, and that we're facing insurmountable issues, challenges across the boards. But our endeavor is to prove that when we come together, we can make an impact through small yet profound actions. So that's why we're here. And Jamie's been my right-hand man since the onset, and I've been so grateful to have a fierce, masculine, sweet,
Mhm.
tender, loving force
That's
of a masculine pillar beside me. And we also have
nice.
the foundation of friendship, and um, it's been really sweet to begin this journey together, and coming on here on a regular basis and sharing our hearts and our thoughts with you is a way to continue to cultivate what it is that we're doing. Jamie, do you want
Oh,
to
thanks for
explain
us.
a little bit, like on your side of things, how you would describe Inheritance Collective?
Yeah, and I think just making the kind of our backstage conversations a little more explicit. I think we're going to come in and out of just being friends, chatting about the project that we're doing. Because yeah, you're an awesome boss lady. I really like working for you, and we'll just be like talking about some of the things we need to talk about on here, and also maybe stepping back and instead of talking within the thing, talking about the thing a bit. But yeah, I think you spoke to Inheritance Collective really beautifully, of course. For me, my angle coming in, something I think I teased you about coming on board is like the grandiosity in your thinking and you're wanting to play such a big game, and how if anybody else had invited me in a project in the way you did, I would have been like, like you're somebody who has believed in herself since I'm yeah 13 years. Like I don't know if that's exact math, but I know I met you when you were 19. um, and you believed in yourself in such a big way, and you believed in the projects that you were working on, and you have created so much beauty in your life. You've got a great track record, a great resume, a great network of friends who are all doing really big things. And if somebody I knew could pull something like this off, I thought it was you. So this is Dara, by the way. um, um, yeah, so for me, I think part of the doubt of can we actually do this, is this something that I want to spend my time on, is actually like part of the solution that we're working on within the Inheritance Collective. The feeling of powerlessness that so many of us have, of I don't think we can talk about the Inheritance Collective without talking about the poly crisis a bit, which is what I've been spending time behind the scenes writing a lot about, because it's, if we're going to be a solution to a problem, we really need to orient to what the problem is. And it's hard because it creates, there's just so many loops to open up because one problem bleeds into the next. And I think what I love about the Inheritance Collective, and I'm going to have to jump around a bit because you can't talk about the poly crisis without kind of being all over the place, is that a lot of solutions that are being presented in today's world, including, like, I'd say, uh, our government, it's so secular. There's certain departments. There's the Department of Education, which is different than the Department of Health. And I think there's some degree of overlap, but like, we're in a separatist way of thinking. And so I think what we're really focusing on is maybe the solution involves how things actually come together and the confluence of both the solution and the problem. How are they all bleeding together? How are they weaving together into one fabric? And what is the tapestry that we're looking at? So we're taking a very holistic perspective on where we want to stand within today's beautiful world in crisis at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just like feeling all of the threads of the crisis meanwhile you're talking. And what's coming
Yeah.
up is like I want to speak to those of us that consider ourselves to be holistic beings, just looking at it from like a medical standpoint. And obviously like Western medicine has its place, but I feel like what you're speaking to right now, and we haven't really gone into this territory, but like if we look at the poly crisis, which essentially is like this multifaceted chaos that we're living in the world that looks like chemical agriculture that's poisoning our food supply and our soils and our waterways, the onset of AI, and while it has its blessings, it also has major challenges that are being presented, politics across the board, war, the war
Hmm.
machine, economy, uh, animal
Right.
species going extinct, like it's just like across every direction you look, there's Gaza, and then a week later there's somewhere else to look and somewhere else to look, and it's just like we're being confronted by so many issues. And I think like from a medical standpoint, it's like if there's an organism that is unwell, which I think we are safe to say that like humanity and our relationship to nature is in a state of dysbiosis right now, that
I like that word.
it's like it's impossible to just look at like one thing. It really is important that I believe, and I think there's people, if you're attracted to this space, then most likely you also share a perspective or an interest in approaching things more holistically and going to the root of the crisis, if you will, which what in our philosophical conversations, there's some certain qualities that we keep landing at that are arriving us to this point of separation and chaos and distortion in our
Mm-hmm.
world. And so what it is that we're setting out to harbor within this global community and the space to connect and then to put that connection towards something greater than ourselves is to address that core issue or those core issues, and to harbor a place of safety and belonging and authenticity and connection and healing and multi-generational living and breaking out of the nucleus and exploring like what does it look like to be sovereign and what does it look like to bring the village back together, and to just open those questions, because most likely we're not going to live to see the answers in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Right.
think one thing we're doing is daring to just like open the questions, and rather than bury our heads under the sand, which sometimes can feel a lot easier, or just like throw our hands up and be like, what can I do? I'm just one person. The idea here is to dare to enter into counsel and into conversation and look at those
Yeah.
problems. Said, like, have the courage to look at the crisis and then consider, like, okay, like, what are the little things that we can do that feed and contribute towards the future that we would like to pass on to generations, even if we don't come to live to see the outcome of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, so many fun threads that we can't pick them all up today. And we're probably, I don't even know, like, there's so much trust even in the conversation that something cohesive will even come out of it. Is we just kind of, but I really enjoy like just emergent conversations and diving in without an agenda to see where it actually goes. We have a light agenda, which is like orienting anyone who's kind of new to what we're doing, but it's also just to be out here connecting with each other in a vulnerable way as we explore understanding each other more and what we're doing together even more. Um, so we've talked about the poly crisis a bit, which again you named really well. It's everything from I like to go from micro to macro on an individual level. It's somebody feeling really lonely and isolated. If you take that out to the global scope, we're in a loneliness epidemic. So we can look at statistics, especially specifically in the US, but across all Western cultures, we're the most lonely, isolated, depressed, anxious, suicidal group of human beings in recorded history. So yeah, I think there's a real need which Inheritance Collective is trying its best to be a response towards, which is belonging. So I work a little bit in men's grief work specifically, which I'd like to bleed into just being a little more genderless. I like the men's work. I think there's a specific piece there, but I'm excited to. I have yet to be at a grief weekend with all people, and so I'm excited about that too because I think both are important. But nonetheless, grief work has been. Kind of an answer to the loneliness epidemic is the way that it's positioning itself, and it's such a cool technology. It's like, yeah, we're so scared to feel our feelings. We're so scared. There's like so much fragility that's been built into the psyche at this point. And so what we're looking at is collective grief. We're looking at multi-generational trauma, collective trauma, all these things. And so how does it relate to saving the bees, which is one of the projects we're looking at working on next? How does it relate to the projects that we want to fund around the world? How does it relate to the things you talked about, which is passing it forward and building a beautiful world that we might never get to see? The other side of caring about something that we might never get to see, which is like benevolence, this deep care, it can almost sound pretentious, especially if you're coming from a nihilistic place. And how do we get there? It's from deep hurt, loneliness, isolation from a world that a lot of people feel isn't supporting me, creates this hyper individualism. It creates why would I help the bees when no one's helping me? I can barely feed myself, my family. I got educated and I still can't get a job. Like, fuck all that. I'm in survival mode,
Yep.
right? So we can start to see how the poly crisis on an individual level is like what we've got a job crisis, we've got environmental crisis, we've got psychological crises happening, we've got neighborhoods that are at war with each other instead of playing like, kids playing and scraping knees on the streets and getting in trouble. Like on every single level, we're kind of getting hit, humanity, because we've we've lost our way a little bit. And outside of any blame or anything like that, it's like, what now? So, what I love about the Inheritance Collective, to kind of wrap a bow on that point, is like when we're in balance with ourselves or in right relationship, even with ourselves, which is an important mission that we're on, is coming back into balance with ourselves, restoring our breath, restoring, like leading with our hearts instead of our heads. And they call that like neck up is being in your head all the time. But it's not really where like aliveness happens. That feeling of being alive in our bodies, kind of, it's here. So we're all learning. And again, I think just for clarity, I don't think you and I are asserting having a bunch of answers. What I really loved about what you just said is like we got pretty good at asking good questions, and we've kind of dedicated our lives to spending time with elders and mentors and ancient ways of being in the world. And like I see you as just having been so humble and picked such amazing teachers in your life at such a young age that you still are in relationship with, which is so cool. And you've just continued to ask really good questions and taken your time to raise your hand and be like, I have an answer. And I don't see Inheritance Collective as an answer or spiritually pretentious. I see it as a big question, a response. What would happen if we all made a different choice instead of thinking like, hey, we're all powerless here. there's 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 too many problems. Well, there's like also 8 billion of us. What if we just all gave a little bit and we took advantage of like just the numbers game, just like Hollywood has, making billions of dollars on movies, just like subscription services have to sell us things that we don't actually need, that are actually helping us stay disembodied and stay on the screens. Like there's something really important about that technology. And so I saw you just ask that kind of really like a kid, a curious based question of like, what if we use some of that technology that's like fragmenting us to bring us together as a response. So I really love that. It feels really important. So the last thing I'll mention on just on this note is like the bees thing, because we've been thinking about the bees and and the poly crisis and how these things fit together. The bees, I feel like when we first heard about it, I must have been like 19 when I was like, the bees are in trouble. Like, okay, like, add it to the list. The whales, the bees. Like, I was a teenager. I didn't know what I could do about it and why it was important. But if you look at any one thing, if we go past overwhelm and we decide to care about one thing, which is the beautiful part about coming back into rooted care, it it has a ripple in everything. So yeah, we can't run around and put out every fucking fire. No, but if we help the bees, like the bees are pollinators, they're connective species, and the bees can't exist without the wildflowers and the trees, which is, of course, this connects to our food source, which is how we came to care. Is this species was dying, and we're like it was irrelevant to us, and then our food quality went way down. Like crops stopped happening, agriculture stopped happening at such a deep level, and so that's when humans start to care, is when it affects us, which is unfortunate. But the good news is we are connected to the web of life and it all affects us. And that's what we're coming into understanding, that we can care about the tiny little insects and it's going to deeply pay us back. So we're allowed to be selfish this time. Everything will help us. We can't exist without it. So anyway, I love the global awareness that we're coming back into. It's okay to be selfish. It turns out being really selfish is really altruistic. And so this is like kind of a reckoning with understanding what it means to be a human being in the web of life. And I love the response that Inheritance Collective has with that reckoning.
Wow, what a golden point. I'm loving this so much. Like so many good one-liners in here, just as you go. Wow. Yeah, that. Um, I'm really curious about, and we're getting into some new territory here, which I love, and I'm grateful for our jam session being put into this context of like opening the doors to whoever gets to see this in the future. It's like pulling something even deeper or different through. And this point that you're touching on, I'm so curious about, which is like, I love the permission to be selfish, and like that
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I mean, it's hard to bring words to, but going back to that point that you made about like, oh, my life is hard. I'm having a hard, like, it's so expensive right now to exist in this world. It's hard. It could be hard to
Mm-hmm.
find a job. Like, how can I justify paying $22 a month to support the midwives in Guatemala that I'm never going to meet, or the bees in Scotland that are not directly connected to my life?
I'm not making my honey.
They're not, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly. And like, why does it matter to me? And how it can be easy to like drop $10 on a coffee at Starbucks or however much on a streaming service, like it kind of is without a
yeah.
thought because that's what essentially we're being spoon fed by society, but it's then delivering us into this loneliness epidemic. And so I'm curious about that, like bridging the gap, of like being like, hey, actually, like I know for myself, some of the highest euphoria I get is when I feel like I've done something to improve the world around me, as tiny or significant of an action that it is. And I think there's actually science that proves this, like in the green regions or whatever, the blue zones, what are they called?
Blue zones.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The blue zones that happen to also be pretty green. via look out the window.
I
They
like that.
they're like interconnected. It's like this place of belonging and of being a part of a community, and like that your existence matters to the whole
Yeah.
actually yields not just happiness, but health and longevity. And so that's part of, I feel like, what we're exploring. And I think this really is very much an experiment. Like, I also appreciate what you said of like, this isn't an answer. This is really us just being faced with like, wow, it's so intense right now. And then asking that question of like, well, what can we do? And that was the question
Right.
that sparked this whole thing of I was in a deep contemplation exactly a year ago, this time last year, of feeling the weight of it all and just being like, man, like it is gnarly out there. And
Hmm.
my natural inclination is to be like, well, what can we do? And I just kept asking, and through that process of contemplation, what came forward was this word of inheritance. And really, at first I was like, well, what is that even, like, why inheritance? And it was very clearly revealed to me that it's the inheritance is like those beautiful evergreen trees that are growing behind you, like that is our inheritance, clean waterways, the wisdom of our
Mm,
ancestors. Like these are the things that need to be preserved. The indigenous way of
mm,
life that is safeguarded in places around the world, but is deeply compromised right now. And
mm,
it's really upon us to, not as like a weight to bear, a burden to bear, but an opportunity to rise to, of like, what are we going to do with this one precious life? Like, may as well take care of this inheritance that we've been given so that we can pass it on to the next generation. And
hmm.
there's a responsibility there. And it's a responsibility that actually does lead to a sense of belonging, connection, fulfillment, and then has very beneficial results for the individual that feels like they're a part of something.
Yeah. Mm, hmm. This is fun. Yeah. Mm,
Mm,
mm. There's
mhm.
like a few pieces I want to see how they want to like tie together in my mind. One, yeah, one is it's so interesting that what came to mind is that you were talking about subscription services at the beginning, and and I was just, yeah, when we're talking, oftentimes I'm playing devil's advocate from like a UX design researcher. Like, well, okay, what's happening for the user right now? Like, how are what's their like point of friction here? Where's their yes? How do we onboard? And I think about myself even like the parts of me that I even judge of like I can't live without my Spotify. Of course I gotta like can't live without all that music. Like I need it for my work, like of course. And I mean I need a couple subscription services. Did I lose you?
No,
We out in the woods. Sometimes the service
I'm
goes out. Okay, great.
out
I just
jungle.
had low network bandwidth for a minute. It might happen every once in a while. Yeah, like I can't live without my Elon Musk. I know he's a dick, but like that's how I got Starlink out here. Like there's these compromises that we make.
Yeah.
It's that's $175 a month to have the internet. I can't live without that. It all adds up, and it's just. But that phrase came to mind. I can't live without that. Like, oh man, I can't live without like 20 months of chat GBT, $20 a month, that's not, but Claude's there too. Like I kind of need them both. There's $40, but I think that is our rationale of like in modernity, I can't live without that is a phrase that like comes to mind. That's what I feel from that experience. And it's ironic because you take an organization that's attempting to do anything that we're attempting to do, which is like save ecosystems and indigenous people. And for whatever reason, there is some, it's not for whatever reason, I'll get into exactly what reason I think it is. It's disembodiment. It's saying, well, there is some take it or leave it there. Like I don't necessarily feel the repercussions of saying no to that right now. So it's what you're talking about is the science. It's dopamine in a lot of ways. If we're being highly reductive, that is what is that's what's abusing our algorithm of what we're choosing to say yes to and no to is a more immediate response pattern where um, we're getting hit with reward systems really, really quickly, right? And I think dopamine, one of the ways I come to understand it is like if you're a hunter and you're going out on the hunt, like when the dopamine really hits, when you're like, oh, I'm a hunter. It's when you're like got the deer on your back and you're taking it back to the people and they're like, oh, you're feeding us. Yay. It's like, but they can go fuck 3 days without food and they're just chasing a deer down, tracking it through like mountains and forests and crawling through the mud and like, but because they're like, I'm a hunter, I know how good this like dopamine's taking them through those hard moments, through starvation, through and right now it's like I need a hit. And so again, I'm bringing this back to how the psyche and the wound of fragmentation in
Yeah.
self and outside is really how we're saying, oh, I can't live without these things that we ironically don't need, and more so might even be making us feel less alive. I can't live without this, but it's actually dulling your life force energy and keeping you from feeling alive at all. And that's the irony, is that we're telling ourselves that this it's like a magic spell. On the other end, you're like, we actually can't live without the peace. We actually can't live without the rainforest, but it feels so far away. And so I think that's some sense making. And the point that I just want to make on top of that, which is my way in, and I love that we all are puzzle pieces. And the polycrisis isn't, I laugh at people and they're like, this is how to solve it. And this is how to do it. And we should do it this way. And it's like, we have to do it from every way possible. Like, it's like we have to be different streams that all go together and turn into a river. And all those rivers are going to go back to the ocean. There's like so many ways. And we're all coming home. We're all getting back to love. We're all coming back to homeostasis. And we're all coming back to balance. And it's like, let's stop arguing over how we do it. I can see somebody doing something that's really different from the way that I would do it and be like, respect. I'm glad that you're covering that basis. Oh my God, you're in whatever that, the guy in New York is just crushing it as a mayor. And I was like, I'm so outside the lines and you're like in it, but you're reinventing it. Heck yeah, dude. Like we need people on all sides of things, hitting it from every angle. That's great. So for me, my way in is embodiment, is like coming into a body that we're feeling. Because if we're not in our own experience, if this is scary, we don't want to be here. So we leave our bodies. Disembodiment is the term for that. And when we're outside of that, we can do really cruel things. We can see people suffering because we've already abandoned our own suffering. It's like we don't need to save anybody else from suffering, already in ours. And it was so hard, we left. I don't want to feel yours because I can't even feel mine. And that's where the grief work and embodiment come together. So when we're in our bodies and we actually feel the devastation, we can't not help. And that's kind of my way back in, is when we're like feeling, when we're living from here, and not just like the idea of living from your heart, but like really feeling like the interactions that we're having with each other. Really, attunement is a word that comes to mind. um, I want to be, I'm not there yet, but I want to become a people when an unnecessary tree dies, or an animal dies that didn't give its life for food, but was just like through harm or through somebody thinking that they were having a good time. Like, I want to be somebody who cares so much he's crying, who weeps, who loses his shit because something just lost its life but didn't need to, out of carelessness. I don't cry because I don't have that relationship with myself and life yet, but at least there's a North Star on the way back. Anyway, I'll pause there.
Great. We got to do a grief thing, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And yeah.
yeah.
I don't know how I haven't asked you to do that yet, but I feel like it would be lovely for the collective to dive into those waters a little bit and hydrate our world with some tears.
It's yeah, we're doing these like I'm working for a really good crew of friends right now, and it's just it's so amazing to see like where because I'm so glad you said that. It's just like I out of all the technologies, I like calling them technologies. Breath work for sure is great, but like something specifically about grief work, just similar to medicine work. I think is we've sat in different medicine circles for a long time, and we don't need to get too deep into it. But I've noticed one of the biggest side effects of drinking copious amounts of ayahuasca is a sense of stewardship for planet Earth. Like
Yeah.
everyone, if you're drinking medicine long enough, you can't not care.
But
It's
it'll
just
work.
like you might get better at singing or playing guitar. I didn't, but like your sense of care and stewardship for planet Earth and other people just gets higher. Whether people follow through and do something about it, maybe, maybe not. That's a different conversation. The amount of care seems to really go up. And I'd say grief work even more like more so in a more sobering way for me is like when I see men who are so disconnected from themselves and maybe they came in and they're new, they heard about this from their therapist and we're like 150 group people. And then they're like, they're just corporate dudes with their corporate jobs and their two and a half kids and they're pretty, what, but they're like, they're grieving some of
Yeah.
their own stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm saying talking in averages. I'm just
Right,
kidding.
right, right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, they just my dog wants attention. He's got my shoe and he's just staring at me. He's like, hey. Um, but like they come in to grieve their own stuff. They came in to be sad about what was happening in their life, that their dad didn't pay attention to them, all the classics of our own personal journeys with our dad issues. But they like the phenomenon that happens is they open that first, doorway to their grief, their personal grief. And when they start feeling that, there's this like anger and grief are really tied to each other. And seeing men who, almost walked in the door of business suits, just like the shirts are off and they're like covered in mud and they're just in twigs and they're just beating the ground and roaring and so angry at themselves for not being showing their anger sooner, for not showing their fangs, for not standing up and beating on their drums and standing up and be like, this is so fucking wrong. Like it's so in us. It's so natural to care. It's so natural to get angry and like sacred anger, not like man out without a control anger, but that sacred anger for like, what the fuck are we doing? And it's way more natural than whatever it is that we're doing. Flipping the switch and getting back there is
Totally. And
significantly easier than the state that we're in.
I mean,
Please.
yeah, and it's natural. And if we don't allow it to move, I'm so glad you're doing this work. It's so important. I'm a huge advocate for men's work and especially men's work and grief work. And mostly because there's so many reasons why it's great, but when we stifle it, it comes out backwards and upside down and distorted and manifests ultimately as war, and so it's like it feels like to me, just to kind of bring the conversation full circle as we come in for a landing, like that
Mm,
is the origin, like teaching not just men but all beings how to allow, like, liberate our feelings so that we can cry over things that are sad and not be ashamed to feel rage, but then have healthy outlets for it, and community spaces where we can go there and get covered in dirt and pound on the earth and like feel the depth of our feelings, so that then the alchemy can happen and it can get moved through and fully embodied, so that then it doesn't just like shoot out in a
mm.
distorted way that becomes either abuse within a relationship with to our children, or this whole systemic abuse that we're
Yeah,
seeing now.
right. Yeah. The word that comes to mind was like the Inheritance Collective is like its aim and its mission is it's triage. It's like if we just focus on feeling better out of the context of a bigger story that involves more of us, it's innately selfish in the not great way, where it's just like, so what? Like if happiness is it, Well, just find your joy and do your thing and find a career that you're passionate about. And if it doesn't involve like the greater web of life, it is secluded, it is isolating, it lacks a greater belonging that we are tied to. It's like leaving yourself out of the most beautiful story that's like constantly unfolding into its next chapter. And if we don't really include ourselves in that whole piece, we're going to continue to sit on the couch and talk about our loneliness, because it's not just our parents, and it's not just the boomers, and it's not just Trump. It's not just one thing. And so, I think I really love that we are learning to take care of ourselves in context to belonging, in context to what's outside of ourselves, because you can't have one without the other. And likewise, when we're looking at belonging, we're looking at who is the individual who's coming in, right? If we're not in balance with ourselves and we're just looking at building eco villages, because you and I have seen that disillusionment. Like we didn't come to these conclusions quickly. Like it wasn't reading a book. It was decades of seeing things that were really inspiring, but also behind the scenes, like, oh, that fucking sucks. And for me, it was the 19, I was like, eco villages are the answer. And I dropped out of college and I went to Costa Rica and I spent 8 months in Central America. And I was like studying all these eco villages. And I was like, man, they are really dealing with human problems and egos and personality clashes just as much as anyone else on the outside. Same problems, different environment, because they're not really focusing on self-awareness. They're not really focusing. And like when I was a kid, I don't think it was very popular to talk about regulation and co-regulation and titration. I don't think trauma was a word that we talked about yet. It was like just something we showed people. So, you know, yeah, trauma and safety, those are key pieces, but I won't go there now. So I think the last piece is just the environment as a whole, really taking care of this earth, which feels, again, the most far reaching, um, the furthest away from us, taking care of bodies of water and endangered species that we've never maybe seen, like people who live in a city, asking people who live in a city who've never maybe been in nature to save this thing that they don't feel like they've ever been a part of, because there's so much disembodiment. That's the furthest reaching piece. So I think being able to triage, like most people are coming to save the environment. I think when I think about it, and this is just conjecture with a lot of research, it's like shame based. You know,
Yeah.
when you're going to the co-op or the health food store, Whole Foods, or wherever you're going, and there's like those people who are like, you should sign the thing. Our world's dying. Like, you know how fucked this is. You should put your name on this thing. And it's like, yeah, one more email. Or no. Like we're almost standing up to feeling shame about it. It's not my fault. Leave me alone. So
Yeah.
like it's almost like care and shame are so wrapped up together on the bigger picture. And so I think a lot of what we're dismantling in our like three-pronged approach here, um, is just coming from deep care, from and the care not in the sense that we're like, I know I'm supposed to care about this, so I do.
Mhm.
Care from like, I feel this deep in my bones and it would hurt not to choose this, and they're different.
Yeah.
So, and you can't, yeah, that's how these three really fit together in my head, and why I thought your kind of solutionary response to creating inclusivity and online community that bleeds into real community, a place where people can take care of their own pain and themselves and also take care of the bigger picture all in one place. I was like, why isn't there more of this already? This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It really does. And I ask myself that too, but it's happening. And that I do feel a sense of comfort when I can like relax into the knowing that, as you said, like we need to support all the streams and be like in solidarity with each other, and like, oh, you're doing it in your own way, different how I do it, and respect. Thank you for holding that zone, because it really requires that approach, that multifaceted approach. Within
Hmm.
typically Inheritance Collective, though, what I think I want to kind of close us down with is that meanwhile, the approach is happening from a lot of different angles. Like it's the timing. Like even right now, it's the eve of a full moon in Aquarius that's in Leo season with a whole lot of dynamics. If you understand astrology, like it's a potent moment cosmically speaking right now, which is a science of its own with these geometries of these huge beings that exist in space. And we are at like a beginning of a new we're at the beginning of a new era a huge
Mm.
opportunity moment. And what I'm seeing is this like waves. There's waves of culture. And within our lifetime, like you said, as a child, nobody was talking about nervous system regulation or talking about trauma. They were just living out their traumas. So just in our lifetime, in the last couple decades, we've seen huge evolution in how consciousness is organizing itself through us and what people are
Hmm.
interested in. The two subcultures that I think are worth tracking are the one that you mentioned, which is the medicine scene and psychedelics, and how people are receiving huge transformations through those spaces and naturally get called into some level of service. And then the other piece of that that I feel is worth talking about is festival culture and these
Hmm.
hyper threshold, these kind of like new age rites of passage almost of these threshold
Hmm.
experiences that you go to, and it takes you out of your normal day-to-day life. You meet new people, you become a more expressed versions of yourself, you reach trance states through dance and oftentimes paired with psychedelics. And it has the potential, and what we've seen is like culture is being shaped by both of these avenues in very significant ways right now. It's making
Hmm.
its way into the mainstream. And then it's like, well, what's the next step? Because it can be a little bit, and maybe this is a strong word, but like a little bit self-indulgent to just like keep going to the medicine ceremony or keep going to the festival, or even like the whole personal growth Tony Robbins world of just like how many more boxes do we need to check in our own personal path of evolution before then we really like take that step towards how we're feeding back the collective. And I would dare to say it's not for lack of desire and inclination that people aren't getting involved more. It's that it's just like I don't even know how or where to turn or how to be a part of change, because again the poly crisis is just so complex. So my final piece I just want to leave you with, and the rains are coming, so I think it's good timing, is
Hmm.
first and foremost, just like start somewhere. If it's not Inheritance Collective, like find your own questions and your own curiosity and your own ways to get involved in your local communities, within your relationships, even of just like daring to ask the question of like, what are we doing on a micro and macro level to be a part of ushering in the dawn of a new day. And then for those that feel aligned and you want to step in to a collective that is devoted to this, then the invitation is pouring rain, is to
I
come
hear it
on.
at all, by the way, Rocks, on my end.
It feels
Zoom,
very appropriate.
Zoom got it up. No, it's great.
Um,
Nice.
the invitation is to step into this space with us and to go on the journey. We offer a lot of juicy experiences to our members, but none of that, no participation is required. However, your presence is absolutely welcome. And we do all kinds of different workshops and pop-up classes. We bring in guest speakers. And as Jamie was saying, this next season, we're going to be in support and solidarity with the bees. So we'll be learning from the bees how it is that we can organize ourselves in community to make sweet, sweet honey.
Mm, yeah. You said this was closing things down, but I feel like you just opened so much up. And there's so much I want to touch on, but I won't. I won't.
We'll leave it for
I'm like
next.
maybe a little bit. Can touch on.
Take
Who
some
knows?
notes. We'll leave it for next.
Yeah. Okay. One
No,
little
no, close
quick,
it down. Close
please.
it down. Just give us like
Uh,
a little
yeah,
tie the bow.
festival culture, medicine, back into the work that we're doing and just continuing to rotate around how we're thinking about things and how we're working is because these things are influencing a lot of culture. And they're easy to point at and say that's not quite right. That's what selfishness looks like. But when we take shame and judgment away and infuse some Brene Brown work in there, and her amazing research that she has done, uh, we can see that it's actually really important. It's really important to be they're on their mission. They're finding the rites of passage, which we're lacking. That's a whole conversation in and of itself. But people are learning, they're finding themselves in their own way. And it looks insanely self-indulgent and it looks hypocritical, and there's all these ways to say that's not it. But when we start getting more inclusive with our thought, we start to see like it's planting these really beautiful seeds. And now since we're evolving, you and I have been involved in festival scenes for decades now, and so we like literally hang out, you and I last reconnected kind of behind the stage, right? We see how they work. Our friends are the ones putting these big festivals together. So we see the inner workings of them. We see the struggles. Like right now, cost of gas and food expenses are going up. Festivals are becoming, I don't know how much longer they're going to be around in the iteration that they're around because they are becoming too high cost to actually produce. So if you look at some of these things, even that is maybe getting taken off the table. Psychedelics people have been trying to take that one off the table since they were put on the table. Let's take that right off because these are tools for liberation. And I'm not a huge festival person personally, but I'm going to one this weekend. I'm going to be leading breath work, but it's small kind, it's all the homies. And so we're reorganizing how we're looking at festivals right now. And
Don't
but
get me wrong,
but
I love
ultimate
festivals. I'm a huge
no,
advocate.
yeah.
I feel like there's another wave coming.
Exactly. How do we harness the kinetic energy? In a word that we haven't used yet that I think we both love is generative. What's generative about this? How do we take what's working and how do we look critically at what's not? How do we take the fact that a lot of the people coming to this are needing to be really selfish and they're in, without judgment, as we all are stuck in an arrested state of development. We all are working with uh, our teenager, and we're working with the exiled little one, and like the idea of dressing up in fun costumes and playing with our friends and just getting down and forgetting that life's like going up in flames right now. There's something so healthy about getting in the sandbox and playing with your friends and playing dress up and just not giving a fuck and just coming into deep presence. It's a stage. It's lit. I mean, right? They're really. I mean, we're playing with stages, but it's an important stage in coming back to ourselves. And so, just seeing how that fits in to the journey that we're all on, and creating those generative models of what's next. So I'll just leave it there. These are all big pieces, and and so obviously a lot of thought, a lot of philosophy, and then finally, like thought and philosophy without action, kind of doesn't get us where we need to go. So, like, thank you for a big word that we haven't really brought in is trust. Self-trust, trust in the path. And I think the game that you and I both play that I really love and how we respect each other's work is like, I can't, I think Preston Smiles did it back in the day. A friend of yours, like, love wins. I think he said that. And I've heard it a few different places. And it just came back through on a client call that I was on. I'm like, it's the game that like love already won. It's how we have that intuitive sense of right and wrong. Like we already know our way back. We're remembering our way back. We're playing like we already won. So like yes, things are on fire. Yes, things really suck in so many ways right now. But the irony and the paradox is we need to relax our way into the solution. If we're hyper vigilant and we're playing into modernity with what's the sense of like urgency is the word. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. What we're just this upregulated mess, just constantly putting gas on the fire. What does it look like to come into the resting into beauty as we continue to add to it? And again, I think that's a really important strength in Inheritance Collective and you as a person and the team that you built. So that's my little bow. There's my closing finish. Thank you, Roxy. Yeah, so I don't know if you want to just name some of the ways that we can get involved. And if you want to come in and be really selfish and you don't care about yet about what we're doing, $22 a month is a really amazing way of taking care of yourself. Coming in and doing breath work, having group sessions where we get to talk about important issues around belonging, around what, like having space held around what's happening in your own personal life, what's important to you, having really informative talks about how you can show up in your life in different areas. And you can put in your own vote around kind of guests that you want to have, and we're going to go out and find them. So this really is at the bottom, like if this is a space of taking care of yourself and that's all you can do right now, you definitely belong here. It is a space for really everybody. So
Yeah.
I'll put that in there as you kind of share like different ways that people can come in and connect and how to go about it.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie, for everything. I'll keep it short and sweet. Inheritancecollective.love. I'll put all the information in the notes of this video. It's a school group, 22 bucks a month, and it opens the doors to being a part of this collective activism and having access to all of the membership offerings. Right now, it's mostly online, but we're looking forward to doing in-person things starting very soon. And it's a community informed initiative. So who shows up to the conversations gets to be a part of selecting where the beneficiary money goes, what kind of content we create, and really how this whole thing moves forward. So your presence is a real gift, and we look forward to connecting more. Go ahead and you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. There's our live videos will be coming out regularly, and we also have a live stream of a women's council that happens every Wednesday, and a few other goodies that are already on the channel and will continue to be shared through this space. If you have questions or comments, go ahead, leave them here, or you can reach out to either of us directly. I'll put our information in the show notes as well. Thank you, everybody, for your presence. Thank you, Jamie. I love you so much. Looking forward to
Love you
more of
too,
this.
Roxy. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Such an honor. Yeah.